Let's discuss. Hello everyone, I am here with an episode of Let's Discuss, the first time coming back in like a year and a half, 2 years, and I am very excited to have Hansel here from Nightlife.
Yeah, no, you killed it.
Thank you. I was like, yeah, I've got it. I have a thing of mispronouncing absolutely everything, so I was like, I got this. For those of you who don't know, this is the vocalist, the producer from Nightlife, who is a band who has tore onto the scene the last, really like the, would you say the takeoff has been like after the most recent EP came out?
I guess so, yeah. We'll talk about it, but yeah, for sure. It's probably since the EP.
Well, thank you very much for joining. I'm so excited to start out doing these episodes again with you. I have a ton of stuff to ask, and I'll try to narrow it down. But yeah, welcome.
Oh my god, thank you for having me. Goes without saying, I mean, I've been watching you for a little bit as well, and to even have you cover us is really, really cool. So to be here, even cooler.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm excited. So we'll just sort of get right into it. Like so I had started hearing more about you all after I don't want to say after the EP came out. It was after I heard Fallback that people started hearing that track and it started coming around more and more. And then looking back on your first EP, the quality was the same. Like, it's not there was, I mean, not in a bad way, but you came out of the gate with a wonderful debut. New Low is a fabulous track. So when you first started up, starting in 2020, kind of a weird time, how was it starting up your project and releasing music into a newly, experiencing pandemic type of world?
It was really weird, to be honest, and you're so cool for saying all that. That's so nice. Thank you. But it was really odd because all three of us have been in bands for years in different scenes, be it the metal scene, the punk scene here, just a bunch of stuff. And the approach with this band kind of from the start was, because it was in the middle of the pandemic, was just let's make music and see what happens kind of thing. Whereas usually, you get into a room and you start jamming and you stumble across this, that, the other, and you're like, okay, maybe we can make something here. This just started out completely as a studio thing that we knew eventually we'd want to get on the road and all that stuff, but it was just what can we do? So, yeah, I mean, it was between Julien and Isaiah and I, we were just meeting a lot over the pandemic, mostly in 2021. September 2020 is when we first met. So, or first jammed together in a practice space. And after that, it was when me and Julien started getting together to just see what came out. And it's funny, he was over last night and we were listening to the very first thing that we had written together. And I don't know if you know who Squid the Whale is, Emarosa's new singer's old band.
Oh, okay.
Fun little lore fact for you there. It sounds like we were copying them straight out, which is very funny. Which the whole us copying Omarosa thing is its own funny meta lore, but in any case, there's a lot there. Yeah, it was interesting. So we just started getting together, seeing what happened, and once New Low started actually happening, which was the first song that we were like, oh, okay, we have something. It's kind of made its way from there, just become a band, and now I'm doing all the normal band stuff. We have merch launching on Friday, we're getting tours ready and
merch will be
getting all the live equipment. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're getting the live rig and the live show together and all that stuff. Some things I'm used to, some things I'm not, but it's all very exciting. So happy to be here.
Wow, that is exciting, and it's just such a unique sound that I feel I know that you said with the copying Emarosa stuff, but I just haven't really heard anything especially with the sort of range that's on Fallback. It can go from I guess like just those instrumentals to complement the type of like, you know, poppiness, or like where you can't really put a genre on it, I suppose. It's like, okay, so a question to kind of segue into from that would be, who are your influences when it comes to Nightlife, or even on the production side? Because that was one of like the main reason, like, of course I love what you do as a vocalist, and it's outstanding. That mixed with looking up the credits and seeing that you were the one who was, you know, behind the production and stuff, I was like, oh my, all right, like, so I'm interested like from that standpoint, but also who do you look to from like a production standpoint? Who are some of your favorite producers right now, that type of thing?
Wow. So I love this question with all my heart, and I also hate it because I feel like I'm going to miss something because there's just so many, as I'm sure is the case with everyone. But I guess I'll start with the producer side, because that kind of explains everything else. Like, I've been a student of the producers in this scene, in like the whole post-hardcore, metalcore, etc. scene for years now. Like, the reason I even got into audio production was because I heard the intro drum fill on Antarctica by Hands Like Houses back like 2011 or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And the drums sounded like cannons, and I was like, how do I do that? Who did this? What is it? And like from there, and like a Pandora station, it kind of like led me down this rabbit hole of figuring out who produced what every time I would hear a new band, and be like, oh, that's why this sounds like this band. Like, this is why that Icy Stars album sounds like that Devil Wears Prada album, but that Icy Stars album sounds like that Hands Like Houses album. Different producers, this, that, the other. That is all to say that today there's a ton of really, really cool producers still doing it. Like, right now, Dan Brownstein is huge. He's been killing it with Dayseeker, Spirit Box, I want to say Invent Animate as well. Couple other bands that I can't think of off top right now, but if it has like big pop rock choruses and like those huge, gigantic 8-string like riffs in it as well, it's probably him right now, or somebody trying to sound like him, which is cool. I love Will Putney. Will Putney is arguably my number one, if not my number two producer of all time, and always will be. He just does something with drums and guitars that just feels so good. So Dan, Will, see, I'm gonna miss like a bajillion. George Lever, who did like Sleep Token, he did Loathe, he did Holding Absence back in the day. There's a few others, all incredible. Eric from Loathe is a really, really cool producer. He did Static Dress, the new Loathe, a few other really cool bands.
Oh yeah, the new Heaven's Gate EP that just came out. He was a part of that one.
Eric did that too?
He was part of it.
I'll
It was
have to
like
check that out.
Eric, and then there was like I think a member from Daybreak, a member from Elysian. Like, they all did the production side of it. But yeah.
Ooh, that's really sweet. I didn't know that. See, that's what I want to see more of, and I'm glad that we're kind of leaning toward it. It's like that collab of like these band members who have been just like me, studying this shit and trying to do it for ourselves, like coming together and making something better or larger than the sum of the parts. But I could get lost down a rabbit hole and will forever feel like I've left some out, but I'll go with like those few as I mentioned right now. And then in terms of bands, I mean, I guess it doesn't connect as much as I wanted to, but for us, like, great artists steal, right? Or like good artists borrow, great artists steal. Like, that's always gonna be the mantra. So our influences are kind of on our sleeve. You got Bad Rabbits, you got Issues, you got Emerosa, you got Dumb Broco a little bit. I'm trying to think, like, anybody that's done the whole like pop, metal, R&B thing well in the past like 10 years, or even just punk in it, I was 100% into it when it was coming up. Like, no shot I missed it. I was looking for everything that did that. Every knockoff Johnny Craig, every Johnny Craig feature, like, I was on that shit. That's huge for us, obviously, but like, when it comes to listening to stuff, like, this is where it starts to sound cliche, because I've heard these bands say these things a million times, but like, we listen to everything, and there is genuinely that equal like love of like, I will listen to this new album from Scalp by like this grindcore band, and then right after I'll put on the new Jessie Ware album, because I don't know, my mind wants to hear them back to back for whatever reason. It's just, there's an appreciation for all things that are going on, and ooh, the coffee's really doing its thing, so I'm gonna catch myself. But that is to say, yeah, if it has pop and R&B and metal, it's definitely influenced us. If it's tried to cross over genres in like a pop or punk way at all, Rina Sawayama, Charlie XCX, that kind of stuff, we like that too. And just like obscure abstract hip hop. Isaiah's really into that stuff too, like Flying Lotus, Thundercat. Those are like the surface level ones. I couldn't even name all the very obscure abstract hip hop artists he's into, which is cool. So, yeah, influenced by everywhere. Very, very born of the scene though. So that's just how that's gonna happen, you know?
That's cool, and it translates really well. Like, even my first time listening to y'all, I was like, as soon as it was like the video panned over to the guitar, I was like, uh-oh, like this is going, like, it's poppy and stuff, but I know that guitar isn't just here for that, like, and then it comes through. So it sounds like it's like a collaboration of like what you all are into listening to in your own time, what influenced you, and then just like having your own identity, which is very cool.
I can appreciate that you guys see it, that people like see it happening.
Yeah, and I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, just what I've said. We're trying to wear it on our sleeves. We're trying to make sure everyone knows like where we came from, what we respect, and what we love.
Yes, it seems like that definitely came across well, because even before doing this, like reading some of the reviews that came out with the EP before that and such, everyone had that sort of like, this band, like they have this and they're blending these genres and things like that, and I think that's becoming more and more accessible when you look at stuff like, well, Bill Murray's been doing it for a while. I feel like people jump to Sleep Token really quickly because they do that well, but Bill Murray is one for me that's like, that really got me into stuff like Nightlife does and things like that, like bringing in these, doing covers of like straightforward pop stuff and then putting out original music content that brings in elements of that stuff and then just like makes it so seamless, like I'm like, maybe I really do enjoy that. And it seems, speaking of covers, so on that first EP you had Nulo, and then it goes All I Know, I think, after that, right? And then the last one is a Rob Thomas cover, is it not?
Yeah, yes, no, 100%.
What made you decide, so you're like, coming in with this first, release, and then we're gonna add this song on here? What was the thought process there?
I think two things happened in sequence. I think Lonely No More randomly came up either because I wanted to hear it or it just like happened on Spotify for some reason. And twice in that song, people don't remember this, there are 2 breakdowns in that song, complete with China Symbol and everything. Like a pop #1 hit. So go back and listen to it, it's really cool.
Oh, I'm gonna.
It's really cool. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, that's interesting. And then maybe like a week or 2 later, I heard an R&B artist I really like, Division, did a cover of You Somebody by the Kings of Leon. And it was taking a very upbeat, straightforward rock song and making it into a very slow kind of ballady R&B track. And I was like, okay, I've heard that done a million times, but this was really neat. And it gave me some ideas of how I could probably do the same thing, blah, blah, blah. And I brought it to Julien one day after just kind of producing it on my own halfway through or something. And he was like, all right, I mean, why not? It sounds cool. And I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know. It works out. It was from the era that we pull from a lot, our childhood, Like there's another cover coming out this year that's from a few years earlier than that. That's like definitely, if you were born within a year or so of like when I was, and I'm old, I'm 27.
I'm 28.
Exactly. So, old in relative terms. But
yeah.
If you were born within a year of me, then you'll probably know the song and wonder why we're doing it, but also be like, oh, yeah, year 2000, now 5, shout out, or now 4, whichever it is. Like, if you had the CD player, you'll remember. But yeah, I don't remember why we were on that. The cover, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I'm really glad that I asked that, because that's a very good reason to do that. And also now I'm gonna obviously go listen to the original version of it to hear that, because those are songs that you obviously a lot of people know. You probably still know the words to if you haven't heard it, and even in 10 years or something. Like, a lot of those songs for, like, that exact age that you're talking about, there wasn't so much, like, oh, I'm gonna do my own thing, make my playlist, go on the, we were, like, ripping stuff off LimeWire at some point to put it on the iPods and stuff, but overall it was a lot of what was popular was what was, like, put in your face so much. So a lot of people just know that stuff but don't go back so often. At least for me, I don't very often go back to some of that stuff. Like, I probably wouldn't listen to that song until you mentioned that, and now I'll go back and re-listen. So that's really cool. I've seen that you've been talking on Twitter and stuff about Nightlife work and stuff. So can people expect Nightlife to keep moving with the content and things like that already, even though you just last year was that last year? Now I don't.
I was. Okay. It was 6 months ago.
All the
which is
COVID
right around the time.
Stuff it blends all together to me, and I'm like, that was one of my favorite EPs of last year, right? Like, I haven't skipped one, have I?
No, you did not. You were right. That was me yesterday realizing that Kobe died 3 years ago. I thought that was last year. I have no idea what's happening anymore, but R.I.P. Anyway. Oh yeah. Nightlife, LOL. You can definitely expect more stuff from us. 6 months isn't. I'm glad that you framed it that way, because I'm relieved whenever somebody's like, oh my god, you just gave us an EP, like, it's fine. But to me, I'm like, okay, we're 6 months out. Like, once it hits like month 7, 8, it's just like, it's hard to stay. This sounds awful, whatever. It's hard to stay within the public consciousness in a way that's relevant if you go that long in today's attention economy without giving them something to mull over. So, giving people something to mull over. So that is all to say, pressure of that aside or whatever, we're always working. The structure that is, it is out of frame and you cannot see it, but it is on my wall, has a lot of music coming this year.
Wow.
Let me count it. For the Rachel Reacts exclusive info drop. If it all happens, that is 15 songs this year. If it all happens. If it happens. Which, knowing me, maybe half of that, if not more, will happen.
That's a lot of music. And what I would love to talk about what you just mentioned as well, because I think, like, everything is changing so much in terms of the way that, I think, like, the anxiety that's probably put on, especially newer artists that are putting stuff out. But then at the same time, like, I posted Nightlife content on my channel and stuff, and I will still get a comment, like, every now and then, like, now, that's like, oh, I love this EP so much, I love this band so much, I love Nightlife and this and that. So it's like, I think it's a lot of the loud people on the internet, like, saying stuff like that to bands and stuff. People don't have that, like, empathy or realization that they're creating this sort of underlying anxiety for artists, like, oh, like, I'm gonna forget about it. But for me, I almost like when I get one of those weeks or two where it's, like, a little bit quiet on releases, and then I can go back and give that stuff attention, because there's stuff from all of these years just piling up that I want to listen to, but I can't listen to, like, 10 things at the same time and have my favorite album on repeat. And so I think even as, like, a music consumer, that gets overwhelming. So as an artist, that's got to be, like, it's got to be anxiety inducing, but at the same time, I think that artists should be able to, like, take their time and put out, because then you're rushing people to put out back-to-back music and not giving them the time to really, like, think it through and kind of put their intentions where they want it to be, depending on, I guess, like, do you have to have a certain level of, like, separation from all of that, being an artist?
Yeah, you went through, like, the entire, for lack of better phrasing, the entire, like, cycle of grief that exists within that. And that makes sense. You're a creator as well, and you're prolific at what you do, for the record. So you listen to so much shit, and I can't imagine trying to keep up. So, because I used to, and I fell off, and now I have to ask people on Twitter, as you see occasionally, like, what am I missing? But no, I mean, it's eventually you come to the realization, and we have too. For as much as the anxiety still fuels and drives a lot of the action that I do, at least, I'll speak for myself, Like, I do want to get something out for people. I do want to follow up. I do want to keep the ball rolling, etc., etc. But ultimately, having gone through this 3 years in a row now, because every year it's been the same kind of cycle of like making new music and everything, there's the same depressive drop, like at the 5-6 month period, where I'm not sure that we can do it again. I'm not sure that it'll happen again, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And that's when you really do understand and realize that the pressure isn't there to fuel you. It isn't there to make anything better for you. It's just going to hold you back. And I know that sounds cliche, but then you kind of go down the path of like, okay, well, then why am I doing this? What is this for? Who am I doing it for? Are you enjoying the process, et cetera, et cetera? Which, mind you, I'm a right person and I still can't handle the balance of all that. I still do not know how much of me is doing this for me and how much of me is doing it for validation or whatnot. But you can try to get through it. You can try to get to your core and try to forget as much about that as you can while you make stuff. That's the best answer I got.
That's a good one though as well, because I think it also has to do with the type of like internet society, I guess, that we're living in now. Is like there is so much good and bad commentary that I think, like, I have the same thoughts sometimes too. I'm like, I'm not like, I'm good, right? Like I'm still doing what I want to do, and like I'm not doing this because, and then I'm like, no, like, I know what I want to do, and I know what I could do to make my channel bigger that I don't want to, and I'm still not doing those things. Like, kind of standing, because it's just so easy to kind of get carried away in all of that, the good and the bad,
Yeah.
It's just such a different time, I think, especially, which kind of connects to what we were talking about before with like the people who had the CD players. You had the Walkman, you had, you were ripping stuff off LimeWire, and then some people didn't really have that experience, and they were kind of born already into the internet world, like
everything is available all the time. You can become a kid of the internet if you want. You could have all the music that you wanted at all times, to say the least.
Which is kind of wild to think about, and it's definitely got its benefits and its downsides as well, I think.
Yeah, without sounding like a millennial boomer, et cetera, whatever. I mean, it's tough. I don't envy the people that are growing up now, because I don't know what it's like to have. I barely know what it's like to have everything available to me at once. I don't know what it's like to have that be the only thing I understand. This world is a place of abundance that is ever engaging me and ever trying to yell at me to get its attention or what. Anyway.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Getting on to the topic of some heavy stuff. But it is like, I think we feel it more and more too, like the more that time goes on, and like there's like that pressure to always be creating, always be innovating, always be, because you'll see stuff like I haven't seen any of this related to Nightlife, but like with some other bands I listen to, people, like for example, people calling things mid, to me,
ooh, the plague of mid.
Oh my god, it just drives me crazy, because
guilty,
like,
by the way, but please.
So yeah, the thing with people calling stuff mid, I just feel like when it's kind of like a cop-out. It's like that internet virus type of thing. Like one person says it, so then other people start saying it, and collectively people love to be negative. Like, people like to dogpile on stuff. And so I feel like that, without providing any sort of, if you say mid because such and such and such, it's like, all right, but like just leaving comments on stuff that's like mid, or changing a name of the band, like one of the words of the band to be like mid or something. It's just like becoming this thing that like makes me roll my eyes. It is, and it's like I feel like people are expecting like bands to create their very own genre every time they release one song or something like that. And so I just feel like that sort of goes hand in hand with the stuff that's related to the internet, and like that, but it's also really good, I think, because otherwise we would never be having this conversation either. If there was no internet, probably, I could, what was I gonna write you a letter and like send it? Like it just would be a lot different. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's tough, right? Because a lot of it, the scene itself has been fragmenting in different ways for years and years and years. But what I find might be happening now, and I could be wrong because I'm not as involved as I used to be, is that you have a bunch of people who care, and this is lack of better phrasing, lack of better words, a bunch of people who care a lot about the scene, about the music, about the bands themselves, and then you have people that don't really care as much. And what's hard for people who care, like me, about music, about whatever, to understand about the people that don't, is that to them, calling something mid, they can just dismiss something and call it mid if it's not for them, because they don't want or care enough to spend the time to find something about it that they like. And that's fine, because that's just not what they came to music or to this to do. That's not where they get that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas somebody like you or I will try to listen to somebody like, I don't know, Boundaries or Invent Animate, that I'm just thinking of bands or whatever, and try to find things that are cool that they're trying to do with the genre, with the things that we know already, and find the little details that make this song ever so slightly better than the one before. That is a lot to ask of somebody who doesn't come to music to find new. They come to music to find, I don't know. See, I haven't answered that part yet, you know? But I just know that they're different and that we don't quite understand them. And I don't know how that impacts the scene going forward. I think that you have a very good point in putting it as like, oh, if a band doesn't come out with a new genre every single time, then they're going to be called mid or something. Like, that is a crisis. But it's interesting because, I don't know, who are they trying to please? Who should bands, I should ask you as well, who should bands want to please more right now? The people who are growing up and still want to be a part of the scene and care about it so much that they will look for the good? Or the people that need to be sensationalized? You know what I mean?
That's a good, I think, like, it sounds so corny and stuff, but I think themselves really, because then you can also tell when, you know, a band is, when their heart is not in it and they're just trying to, you know, please I think that if a band wants to change directions or something, then, like, that's a decision that they made, and that's because that's what they're feeling now. And you don't really want a band that's not, especially with what we're talking about with how much music there is. Like, surely if you're not getting for example, I'm not sure if you saw what happened at one of the recent Architects shows. I can't remember where it was. Vaguely. Yeah, somebody went up on stage and, like, was yelling at them to play old stuff, and, like, got in Sam Carter's face telling him that, like, he was disappointing Tom and stuff, which is just insane. It's absolutely terrible.
Who are you?
Right? Like, what are you doing? It's insane to me. But could you not just go onto the great internet and find stuff that does gear toward, like, why would you buy a ticket for that show, pull up to that show, go as far as to somehow get yourself onto the stage and get the microphone? Like, why not just find stuff that you do like, rather than put so much energy into trying to bring down a band that's trying to do what they want now? They've obviously changed directions and have been through a lot as a band, and they lost a key member to something traumatic for all of them, not to mention. So now they want to do something different. So just let them do it and move on, right? Like,
right. No, it's really interesting, because then I while you're telling me that, I'm trying to put that person in one of my boxes, and I'm like, do they not care? I guess because for them it's too much effort to find somebody who isn't Architects to do that thing. And I don't know what that means or anything, but that is disrespectful. And Architects are a wonderful example, just like Bring Me, just like a bunch of other bands, of, like, gracefully and dynamically shifting the goal of the band. And I respect them to no end because of what they've done and what they've paved and everything like that. So if you can't see that as a fan, I don't know if you care, personally, but that's just me. Another band, not to name names because this does end in a good way, I think, but, like, I really respect, like, Silent Planet, for example, who, on topic with what we're talking about, I can't tell who they're trying to appease any besides themselves, of course, any given album cycle. Like, this one, if it sounds like Signal, for example, then I think they're going more for the people that care, because, well, see, then I get confused because they're doing the new thing, they're doing post-metal, and they're doing this or that. So I don't know. I don't know what a band like that needs to do to sustain themselves, to successfully do what it is that they want to do. It's an interesting position that we're in with the scene right now, and just with where everyone is as an age, what the mainstream is doing, what actual teenagers who are 16, 17, 18 are doing with the idea of alternative, the idea of emo, etc. I keep staring at my other screen because before this I had a call with a publishing company, and they were on their homepage about something as like one of their sync licensing albums that they put in a bunch of Netflix shows or whatever, and it's called Gen Z Rap. And like 4 of the songs, I went 4 songs in, and all 4 of them have that like boop, bop, boop, bop, like pop punk beat thing, but like in the electronic way. Like The Weeknd's done, I think Mag Park has done a couple songs like that. But you know the beat that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So when I say like, oh, what the youth are doing with the idea, that's what it sounds like to me, you know? So I lost my train of thought a long time ago. I was going on and off the rails. But
it happens. I feel like that's easy to do in talking about so much stuff, like, you know, the bands that are kind of like changing their directions and stuff like that. It's like, I guess it is hard because at the same time as people want so many different things too. Like if you read the negative comments on like popular bands' videos, they vary with what they're saying this band should do in that band. So and there's always gonna be some negative comments on everything that gets some attention, you know, like there will be people who don't like stuff, and I think that's where people kind of fail to realize stuff, is that like sometimes stuff just is not for you. It's okay not to like something. Like it's perfectly okay for a release to come out and for you to be like, you know what, it's not for me. And it's okay to share that opinion too. I think that some people are like, you should never say anything bad about my favorite band, but like if you have some feedback, why not like leave it for discussion and stuff like that. I think it's different when people start doing stuff like what we were just talking about, like attacking the band for it and stuff. There's never
or
a
labeling
situation.
them mid, like just keeping them there.
Yeah, putting them in like a box pretty much and being like, I'm gonna write this band off and everyone else should too. Like, I don't know about all that.
Trying to consensitize it. I don't want to. We should probably switch on to a different call before I ask this, because I want to know, like, what do you look for in a band nowadays? What is it that gets you so excited about hearing the new Current song or the new Invent Animate song?
Okay.
Because I've heard them and I think they're cool too, but I'm definitely, again, I'm a little removed. I'm more a fan of music now than I am a fan of metalcore, unfortunately. So I miss a bunch of shit.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love that question. Okay. Right. So, getting into that question, I guess what I look for, I try to keep it as open as possible. So like I'll listen to most stuff and give it a shot. If it's not for me, it's not for me. But with stuff that is my favorites, like what you had just mentioned, Event Animate being one of them, I just feel like I felt connected to them the first time I ever heard their music, which at this point was quite a long time ago. I think like going on 8 years or something like that. And I saw them in a live setting at first, and just the energy that they brought and like the lyrics on their music, it was just, and for me, something that's really big is atmosphere. I love stuff that's heavy but also has like that great atmosphere. It's ambient, it's got those qualities, and they just feel like a band that has been constantly evolving. Like every release I have just loved more. And I say stuff like Invent Animate, best band in the history of the world, backed by science, because obviously that's not true. Like nobody's favorite band is backed by science to be the best band in the history of the world. It started out as more of a joke, and now I've been saying it for a long time, and now other people are starting to say this stuff too, and less people are giving me a hard time about it, because I think they understand that like I obviously know that, well, like
no, isn't that the point? Like, to you, this is the best band in the world, no question.
Yeah.
And that ultimately means a lot more than, I don't know, somebody calling something mid. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is more of an impact, more important. And, you know, it's cheesy, blah, 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 blah. But if they are the best band in the world to you, then they're the best band in the world, period. You know? Yeah.
And I think that another thing that's, like, a lot of people are understanding, but some people do fail to realize, is that, like, the one of the things that makes conversation in the scene and about the music so fun is that everybody does have a really different idea at the end of the day of what that should look like, the best band in the history of the world, or what they're really like. Because that's, I post some stuff on the channel, or we do some stuff on request streams where I'm like, you know, this really isn't my cup of tea, because like I think a lot of it, like something I bring up a lot in my videos is like the roots, like what got people into this sort of music. What did you binge a lot of when you were like at this age, or as whatever age you even got into this scene or this music, even if you're relatively new. If it was more like you were into like the classic metalcore sound, or you liked a lot of hardcore where they have more raw vocals and stuff, what you're gonna love more is gonna be different than what somebody who was like very into like the more atmospheric stuff and the really clean production and things like that. And that's why it's fun to kind of pick things apart and discuss them. And it's definitely discouraging to see people like attacking each other on the internet because like you don't share the same opinion. But it would be like, I just imagine a community where we all have the exact same thoughts about every single song that came out, and to me that just sounds so boring. Like it sounds incredibly dull. And so I've talked around the point a lot. What I look for, at least in a new band for me, are those things.
This is important context. I'm getting it.
Yeah, so it's like for me, I listened to a ton of like, before I sort of got involved more on the internet and like realized the subgenres that I could branch out to and started finding bands that did hardcore in a way that I could get further. And now it's like a big genre for me. I don't love like stuff that's super raw vocally, and it's just a preference for me. But there are bands that have all the other hardcore elements, and then the vocals would just do stuff for me. Distinguisher is a huge band that kind of showed me a further, they're a huge, like one of my favorites at this point. R.I.P.
Yeah, they're gateways for that reason. Yeah, and I saw all that go down. That was really sad.
Yeah, it sucks. But I'm very grateful that they kind of opened some more doors for me as well. Like my taste has gotten progressively heavier as I've started my channel, especially
ironically
the
enough,
last
same.
year.
Yeah,
really?
I don't know how that happens. Yeah,
I guess sometimes, and like as your taste changes as time goes on and stuff too. Like I spent a big chunk of years listening to like, I didn't venture outside of like standard metalcore really much at all. Like there would be a few artists here and there. I came from a lot of pop punk and post-hardcore, so there are always those bands I keep on rotation. Law Dispute is one I go back to a lot because they were like a foundation block in my taste. And
I remember where I was when I first heard the latter half of Wildlife. Like they are crucial to my heart.
That is one of the
we probably
best.
Came up on a lot of the same stuff. It's
it
just at some
sounds
point
like
I decided to be a producer, and eventually I was like, okay. Because I used to not listen to stuff that was more raw sounding at all, period. Like, whether it was the vocals or whatever, I just didn't, if it didn't have good production, quote unquote, I didn't like it. And so going away from that in recent years has been what really has actually allowed my taste to change and stuff. But until, like, I don't know, 2016 or so, like, even a band like La Dispute was, like, a stretch for me. Because I was like, this kind of sounds like shit. It didn't. But, like, for whatever reason, I was like, it's different. There you go. So yeah, I don't remember what my point was interjecting there, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like we came from a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm so glad you brought up Wildlife, because to this day that is still one of my favorite lyrical albums that has ever been written, that I've ever heard in my life. Like Jordan
and
Dreyer.
If you've never been 23 and listening to that album, because he wrote it when he was 23, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like, you're missing out. You need to be 23 and hear that album and be what is gonna happen when my mom dies? I don't know. Jeez. Like, it's a whole lot.
It is, and then his ability to like listen to other people and then convey their stories and stuff. Like a lot of what he wrote on that album as well, like King Park, and a few songs like that are stories that he got just by talking and listening to people. And I think it displays a certain level of empathy and like ability to remove from yourself and sort of like to write about somebody else's, like to feel that deeply about a situation that you didn't experience and be able to convey it. Like King Park is one of the craziest songs
One of the
ever.
It's a GOAT song.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a GOAT top
Live?
10 post-hardcore song of all time.
Oh, I went to the Wildlife tour, so it was like the cycle, not the one that just happened. I'm old, so like the original one, like. Oh God, yeah. I had a ticket for the one that was last year, but I was sick and I did not get to go, which sucks. But I still have the vinyl that I bought on that tour, like the original one and stuff, and like just seeing that live, I was like, I think I was maybe 16 or 17 when that happened. It was like 2011. I was in high school.
Oh damn! Oh, the original. Oh my.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about the tour
My
when
bad.
that album came out. Yeah, it was a long time ago, and my best friend and I went to Boston. I grew up in Rhode Island, so like they didn't come there. A lot of bands don't go to Rhode Island. They're like, Connecticut or Massachusetts. Y'all can What is Rhode Island? Which is fair. So we went to Boston on a school night, and then I think her parents has said, like, no, you can't go to this concert to her, and we were just like, yeah, okay. So anyway, we're going to the concert, and like just didn't ignore it.
Love that.
The car got towed while we were at the concert. Like we had to. Oh, it was not a great situation when we got out, but it was all worth it to have that experience. Like. And not to sound, oh my God, I don't even know if I should say this because of how old I'm gonna sound. But like,
I know.
It was just such a different experience because it was like everybody was 100% in the moment. And I mean, I take videos at shows now too. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch this back. The quality is so good. I'm gonna be able to relive like this little 30-second video I'm gonna take and stuff. But like, it wasn't like the view in front of you was not a bunch of phones and stuff. It was a bunch of kids in this basement of a big venue. Like they had the big room upstairs, and then they had the basement room, which is where La Dispute played, and like all these kids just yelling like all the La Dispute lyrics back and stuff, and it was just
that must
like
have been insane.
Core memory for me, I think. Like,
right. And I'm gonna go off on La Dispute unrelated in a moment too for a second, but also that's a great tie back into like what I was thinking about, what we were talking about, and where the scene goes and everything, because who you are and the music that you like, unless you're somebody, honestly, like you or I, who's a creator who has to seek out other music for this, that, the other reason, what music was with you when you most felt like yourself is what music will stay with you. Whether that's because, it's not about like, yes, it's about creating good memories and stuff. That will obviously make a huge impact too. But like, I listened to Scorpion by Drake and remember the good memories of that year, but that doesn't mean that it's part of who I am. I still listen to Vanity of Sleep by Silent Planet, which came out around the same time, because that song became a part of, I was my most me and my most sad, dark me at that time when that song happened. So it stayed with me. But that's a whole other, I don't know, as I crest over 30 in a few years, I don't know what this whole metal scene is gonna do. You know, I don't know what happens next, honestly, for the first time in a few years, because I now see where we're divided and I don't know what happens. But putting that aside for a second, just to go back to La Dispute, what's brilliant, I know that's just because I'm a nerd and I have to say my piece.
Well, I'm gonna circle back to what you just said too, because I feel like it's very important.
Damn, we jumping.
ADD.
What's brilliant about that whole thing and him getting the stories from other people is that, at least my interpretation of that album, that thesis, was kind of like I said, like, how does one deal with loss and grief without, or prepare to deal with loss and grief without having already gone through it. And he tried to do so by understanding how other people went through it, how other people dealt with it in sudden ways, in long drawn out ways, in ways that are, you know, begotten love and tough love and everything, with Edward Benz and all that. And to me, what still, as I'm saying this, gives me chills is remembering that I listened to Panorama when it came out in 2019 or whatever. And I don't know if this is true. Again, this is just my interpretation of the record. But it sounds like his partner committed suicide. And he finally learned what grief was, and that was his attempt at processing it in real time and understanding why she did it, what happened, what he could have done differently. And like in the context of Wildlife's teachings and lessons, like this band has really been on some shit that is beyond what I was able to think of when I was their age, and there still are. But that's how I take it. That's why I think that what they do is really cool. They're very like grief, loss,
that gave me chills.
Sad, right?
Yeah.
Like, very stricken band, and they cover that feeling by trying to explore grief so much, and I really respect them for that. But that's my nerd piece on that. I just like remember hearing that album and being like, oh, and I like cried. I was like, there's no help this man. What happened to this guy? What happened?
Yeah, it's really, and I think that again, like stuff like that really depends on the type of person that you are and how you connect to stuff. Because for some people, like I have some friends, and I also like, I know I've thrown a lot of shade on the community aspect, but there are also some absolutely brilliant people and just outstanding examples of true like selflessness and connection and community in this scene as well. As much as there is bad, I think that there is good to follow that up. And like I am a completely different person than I was when I started my YouTube channel because of the community that I have, and that like
Exactly.
and that has supported me, and left comments on my video, and sometimes those comments were not like, oh, this is so good, because that wouldn't have been true the whole time. Like, I remember starting my channel, and I did the music video like as the big part, and then I had like this little box that was my reaction, like this little and I was like, this makes sense because the music is what's more important, not me. That would be so weird for me to make my face the big part. And then people were commenting on my videos like, hey, what are you doing?
We can't see you. Yeah.
And it just didn't make sense to my brain, because I was like, this is more important, so it should be bigger. Move on. But like those things, and people commenting on, well, at first, honestly, some people absolutely hated the way that I did my videos, and they gave me such a hard time about it. But there were certain things I wasn't gonna budge on. I'm not gonna pause in the middle of a song I've never heard before. It kills the momentum for me. It's not the way I listen to music. There are a bunch of other channels that did that, especially at that time. Now that I think that there's more, it's not so weird anymore, so people have stopped giving me a hard time about it. And now I get more comments that are like, I love like the format of this video, because I'll talk at the end. It's not like I'm just gonna end it and not say anything,
Yeah.
I think you also have to know yourself and like what you want, but at the same time be willing to take criticism and like, oh, okay, like I do see what you're saying about the reaction part should be a bigger part, because that's what the video says in the title and stuff. Like, I see you. I thank you. I'm gonna switch that around and stuff. But
Yep.
I think that the community, like, also, I was a terrible person in front of the camera. Like, I'm a nervous person by default, and so like the idea
You and I both.
yeah, right. I think a lot of people, especially like people who make music and stuff, they can like touch on those subjects, so like they tend to do like, they're either there's something there for a lot of people, at least. So it just was such a foreign thing for me. But when I started my channel during the pandemic, because what was I gonna do? I couldn't go to shows anymore, and that was like my main way to connect with the music, and
With
I would
the people and the people that love it, and the people that are like you.
Exactly,
And
yelling all
behold.
the lyrics and stuff. And then so it just got to, and my friends have been like, start a YouTube channel all the time, because I would never shut up. I used to go, when I found out like about, that you could go onto a subreddit and be like, for fans of this band, and find like a bunch of stuff, I would get out my notebook. I would be writing this stuff down. I would listen to an album and just be writing notes in a notebook. For why? Like, why? Why would I do that?
You're a student. I don't have a better way to put it. There's a cooler way to say it, but you're a student, and that's really cool. And if anybody, to be a creator, to be a reactor, again, I'm just really glad that it's people that actually care about what's going on in this genre. I see you. I see Metal Burb. I see Key of Jeeves does some stuff in our scene occasionally. Like, I really like who's doing it now, because you can tell that we're past the pandemic stage where, we had the reaction wave and everybody was watching them, and it was this hip-hop guy listening to this metal song, same face. Now we want the content, and the community wants the content, and the people who know the community best, that know the culture best, are the ones that are actually covering it. And that, to me, what more could you want within your niche subculture besides your champions to be students themselves,
I think that's the part that keeps me doing, because I know reaction, and I've known the whole time. Like, I was pretty skeptical to start a reaction channel, because I was just like, I liked Metalbird's channel before I started making videos and stuff. I liked Hardcore Keem before I started making videos, but I was like, for me, like, I just really like to I was like, I don't think that like I'm like either of these people. I do think Metalburb has I love what he's done with his more recent content. It's a lot more focused and stuff like that. But for me, I was like, I don't think that people on the internet will like my how I do stuff and things like that. So it was just like, I want to focus on talking about it. I'm not going to do anything in the video that isn't what I would, how I really feel. Like, I just don't think it's going to be received well. And my friends talked me into it. And
I'm glad they did.
Me too. I really am, just because of how you don't think that something like this will make you grow as a person, but it really does, because you become, like, now I can speak in front of a camera and stuff. I still would never want to give a speech in front of, like, a bunch of people or anything.
Sure, but it's a skill that you picked up, and it's a whole new strength and confidence, and that's beautiful.
It makes you more comfortable, I think, especially being able to, because there are just certain situations, like, I've learned a lot more about other places and stuff as well, because, like, I have a Discord server for my channel, and I've had it for a few years now, and the main people in there and stuff, we're from all over, and I think, like, what you learn in school and stuff about, you know, other countries, other places, like, that's one thing, but, like, actually getting to know people who live there, sharing photos with each other, talking about experiences and stuff. It is just the channel has given me stuff in my life that I don't think I ever could have even, like, grasped onto before it actually happened. So it's just like, there's bad that comes with the community, I think, but I wouldn't be here and doing what I do, I don't think, if I didn't feel like overall it's just a really great place for it to be. It's a great place to be. There, anywhere that you go, anything that you do, I think it's just the way that life is now. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a metalcore, metal, heavy music,
find your
whatever.
pocket.
Exactly. There's gonna be negativity.
Chance, you know?
I've seen some people be like, I'm never gonna get involved with the metal community again because it's just a place of people sitting. It's like, well, where are you? I'm sorry, but where are you gonna go? Like, if you don't enjoy the music anymore, that's one thing. But if you go into any other place, there are gonna be shitheads. Like, there's just gonna be shitheads anywhere, and I think that
they're gonna be loud.
They're gonna be so loud. They are the loudest people. You have to be able to, and it's not that it's not difficult. Like, sometimes I'll get a comment that's mean or something like that, and I will, like, dwell on it, you know? Like, it will get to me. It'll get to me. It's like they say, like, you could get 100 nice comments, but the one bad one or mean one is gonna be the one that sticks with you, and it's true.
It always is.
Oh, wow. I got off on a tangent there as well. But anyway.
I'm so glad you did. I'm always wondering more about just what goes behind the process and thought of becoming a reaction person. I wanted to start a YouTube channel a while ago, too, before any of this happened. So this is always really cool to hear.
I always say to anyone who says that, like, if you really are interested in it, just try it out. Like, it really could end up benefiting you in ways that you don't have any idea of right now. You would like, if you had asked me, like, 3 years ago, I didn't have my channel yet. I think I started it after lockdown happened for real. I started it somewhere around May, like when Currents was dropping The Way It Ends. And, like, if you had asked me in February of 2020, like, what would you get from, like, starting a reaction channel? I would have been like, man, like, I don't know, like,
work.
yeah, I'm not really sure. Mean comments on the internet or something.
You're right.
But it's just, like I said, it's just given me a lot more, and I think I'm more. I got to know myself more as well, because I think when you're somebody, it would be different if music wasn't, like, such a large part. But I was just talking about, I would go in, like, take notes on, like, what people were listening to and like what else I should listen to, how I felt about, and then I would close the notebook, never look at it again. Like, I just had to, like, have an outlet for it. Yeah,
that's how you had to process what you loved.
Exactly. It was like I have all these feelings about it, and then you do something like this, and I've got to meet some of my favorite bands. I've got to have conversations like this, like, just stuff that, for me, like, this is what it is all about for me, because I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly, you know, being pushed a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And as a person, I think that's where you're, like, the most growth comes in, you know?
Oh, yeah. I would agree. And I'm glad that you feel that way, because if anything, somebody like you getting deeper and deeper into the community is only going to improve your content and make the community feel more safe, more insular, more like the people that are in it care and are there for each other. That's why I remember listening. So I was an religious listener of SOTS for years. I'm talking, I don't know, 2017 on my shower speaker, like, as a routine, to, like, 2020 is maybe 2021 is probably when I, like, stopped listening every single week. Now I still listen, but, like, maybe I catch up, like, once a month or something. And listening to that, I remember distinctly, that was the first time I felt like I'd even had friends in this scene, period. And I didn't know these people. And it was just cool to have somebody tell me about the thing that I loved so much, but that I had spent so much time getting to know on my own. And with a few people that I went to shows with, bandmates, etc. But I don't know, it was different. So there was a lot of growth in getting involved with the community. There's a lot of growth in, I don't know, seeing what other creators have to say, what they feel, all that stuff. So I'm glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you are as well, especially as like a, you know, to be putting in, like, hearing where your roots are and like what the interests are of the band and stuff like that. It's just very neat to hear of like how, like, the behind the scenes of something that, because I've listened to that EP quite a bit now, like, so it's very neat to kind of get an idea of what kind of got you to where you are, because I'm very big on that. Like, the roots thing is something some people watching this probably roll their eyes the first time I said that, because it really is something that I bring up so often. But I just feel like for people who have music as such a big part of them, like, that sort of stuff it makes it make sense, you know, like what you said about the Rob Thomas cover, like, it made it make way more sense to me than in the beginning.
Now you're getting it. I mean, I'm glad that I'm able to. My whole thing is always like being insecure, the fact that I know that I'm in a pop band, but like, how do I convince you that I really like grindcore? Like, how do I do that? I make pop music, you know? How do I convince the scene that I actually, you know, that I listened to Issues religiously, that I know what Currents is doing right now, I know who's big, like, I still care. I still love you guys. I still love the scene. I don't know. I feel like I'm always going to feel like a poser in the place that I came from. Because I chose to make pop music, but I think
it's very cool because it's been recepted very well by people in the scene, and also it kind of,
thank God, that's been the most lovely like validating thing that I could have asked for. But yeah.
I think that, but also you're able to kind of, it's sort of like what I was talking about with Bill Murray before, like pushing me in sort of like hearing these things in the music where I was like, maybe I will give 100 Gex a spin, because Bill Murray said, and then I did, and there were some songs from them that I totally dug, just sort of like, so it makes it more accessible, I think, like, because sometimes just straightforward heavy, it's gonna be for certain people, but it doesn't like have that reach necessarily, like what Sleep Token is doing right now. There are people listening to these, you know, listening to the breakdown in the summoning, listening to Vor, which has straight up black metal vocals and stuff.
Damn,
like,
spoiler. That was the only one I haven't heard yet so far. That's
oh,
fine.
No.
That's on me. That is on me. I've had like 2 weeks to listen to that shit. You know
so
what's?
sorry.
I'm going to be totally real, because this is a good... Sleep Token is a band we have to talk about. I have not listened to it because, I shit you not, after the 4th single, I was like, I can't take this anymore. My ego is shattered. I need a break. They are setting a different bar. After the summoning happened, I was like, oh, fuck. Okay? Like everyone else, I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And then they dropped 2 more singles that are even more art poppy with what they're doing. I'm like, I ain't producing shit. Sleep Token is out here making worlds, and I'm out here like, does this pre-chorus work if I put it over here too? Oh, man. Like, I digress. So much respect for them. Somebody needs to write an essay or a doctoral, thesis on them and how they've taken everything we've talked about in context of the past 5-10 years and just created a masterclass of it. Despite, mind you, I still don't know if Vessel, the person behind it, is from this scene. I'm in fact pretty positive that they have very little to do with it. Not to spoil.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've also done the research or whatever.
Yeah.
Or had it spoiled to you or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm still not positive where they came from. I'm still not positive how much of it was George Lever at first. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much there that's perfect. I don't know how they've done this. They're so good at what they do. Respect.
Amazing musicians and songwriters at that. Like, how can you write a song? Like, I know. So actually, after posting my most recent reaction and saying that Aqua Regia was my favorite, and that a lot of people gave me shit for that at first. I love the summoning. I love it. But for me, the more I listen to Aqua Regia, the more I just like that chorus just hits with me, and also has like that bad bitch verse in the bit. I think it's the first one where he's like, lately I'm a circuit board integrated hardware you cannot afford and stuff like that. Like I love that. It makes me feel like good about myself, and like when I listen to it and stuff. But I love the summoning too, you know what I mean? And seeing everybody's list being like when ranking the singles and how much it varies and stuff, it's just so cool. It's like what we were talking about before, like having a different opinion is not a bad thing. It's it's taste, it's subjective. Like if that hits for you in a different way than it does for me, good, you know, I'm glad.
Wow, let me ask you really quickly. When you're in your bag with whatever music you're listening to, are you listening in the first person? Like, is it about question. You?
So I feel like when I first listen... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, just to explain a little bit further. That is what hip-hop is. Hip-hop is as popular and as transgressive as it is because to the listener, to a lifetime hip-hop listener, it's music they could put on to pump themselves up, to feel good about themselves, to feel like they're badass, to feel like they're this, that, the other. So it makes me wonder, when you feel that way listening to a Sleep Token song, once again, they're hacking the fucking system. Does that mean that you've been listening as well in first person this whole time, but we've been lacking a perspective that is a positive one to take on? You know what I mean? To make me feel like a bad bitch as opposed to a very sad bitch.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I guess like my first listen, it's always open to change. Like I focus a lot on lyrics. Lyrics are huge for me. So it's like I'll listen and then like I'll fixate on certain lines and stuff and like try to, like, for example, the most recent single from, not to hop around here too much, but Invent Animate, with the breakdown saying I am enough, I am whole, I am enough. I've latched onto that, but I think it's a reason that like I don't often think that way. You know, it's not something I say to myself often, but it inspires me to kind of keep that in mind. Like I want to get those lyrics tattooed because I think that the way that my brain is, I'm so often tempted to think things that are completely the opposite of that. And so to hear, and a lot of breakdowns and stuff are like,
is the opposite of
that.
It's
the opposite. It's like it's you're mad at you, you're mad at somebody else, you're mad at something, and like I think that translates to where you hear it in first person or whatever. But a lot of times with the lyrics I latch onto the most, it can be first person, but it also could be like in an empathetic way. Like I haven't experienced this, but like I feel it in the music. Like I feel what this person went through. With the Aqua Regia verse, I think that I just like I don't know that I don't like feel it in the first person, but I admire I admire it. It's like it makes you want to feel that way, you know, like putting on something uplifting, and it's like, okay, like maybe I am integrated hardware you cannot afford. You know, I would never come up with that thought myself, but you know what? Sleep Token, I'm gonna repeat it, and then maybe at some point I'm gonna believe it. Like,
well, what you're telling me here is, with your own, answer of it is that we really are we all can't. Oh. No. Hold on. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, now I can. It went out for a second, but you're back to how you were before.
My computer has trouble powering things sometimes because I'm running on an 8-year-old laptop still. Not for long. Ahaha. Nightlife money, baby. Metalcore money.
Money.
No, but that hits on something really interesting because we all, and I'm glad we finally got here, and I'm very surprised that we spent so much time on meta thinking. But anyway. We all ended up in this music for what reason? We were all outcasts to some degree, or at least cast aside to some degree, right? We all felt unheard or misunderstood. And we all wanted a place to go to feel like we were understood or heard or have somebody speak for us or whatever that might be. Now that thought itself has its own branches that go off a million places, but in context of this, it's very interesting to feel like we might be in a position where we're finally going to start wanting, not positivity, but wanting something other than self-destruction out of our being understood. Perhaps there's a part of us that wants to be understood, that is happy, that is confident, that is seeing, or, I don't know. I'm not phrasing this like I'd like to, but it is very comforting and exciting to know that somebody is excited about a Sleep Token line that is about confidence. Somebody's excited about an Invent Animate breakdown that is about self-assurance. Like, it's very powerful stuff, honestly. considering
Yeah.
how long we've been in this and what we've seen and how long it's taken us to get here, you know?
Yeah, and I love sad bitch music as much as the next person. I think I always
and I
will.
both.
Oh yeah, I always will. I'll relate to that. I will, latch on to lyrics that I can relate to, and like I've been through that as well, or whatever. But it's a really refreshing take, I think, to hear stuff like that. Is pretty much an affirmation. The immolation of night breakdown. I am enough. I am whole. I'm enough. That's an affirmation. Like, what breakdown do you know that could be an affirmation like that?
Yeah, I didn't catch that my first time around, and I'm disappointed. That's really cool.
It's so cool, and it's just stuff like that. So I guess like I guess it's not like a one track. Like it could be the complete opposite, and I may hold on to it. It could be, if it's done in the right way where it hits for me, and I kind of latch onto it, that's really like what clicks for me, what connects for me, and which could be the opposite to somebody else. Somebody may hear that breakdown and go, ooh, that riff is sick, like, and that's true too. For me, it was just like, whoa, like, what did they just say in the breakdown?
How did that just make you feel? Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, kind of, I guess, like, sort of inspiring. And, like, stuff could be inspiring in a different way. Something could be totally sad and self-destructive, and I'll hear it and I'll admire the honesty or the vulnerability of it. There's just so many different angles, I think, to come from.
Wow. That was a cool circle to come down.
I suppose, yeah, we have, I did want to ask before we wrap up and stuff, what kind of, okay, awesome. I was like, what you like to do, because I mean, it's nice to talk about like what what I've found you through and stuff like that, but a lot of people look at that and don't, like, I'm curious what your hobbies are aside when you're not, doing nightlife stuff, when you're not, what outside of that, who are you?
Ain't that a great question? I mean, we all have our own thing. Julien is really he plays for a bunch of bands, so it doesn't count because it's still music, but he plays in a reggae band, he plays in a ska band, he plays in a couple pop bands. Like, he's a very prolific performer. He's really good at what he does, and he's very studied, and he's learned a shit ton of songs in his lifetime. Like, I chose him because he is a library of riffs and whatever, and I can paint with him like a motherfucking brush. It's amazing.
How cool.
But, and vice versa, mind you. But, oh man, what do we do outside of music? Isaiah is really into anime and video games as well, and cars. He works a lot on his own and his friends' cars, just kind of doing customizations and stuff like that. I play, currently, I'd say video games normally, but I play a lot of Fortnite right now, specifically. And when baseball season is on, I watch the Mets game every night. But that is not right now. And then besides all of that, I mean, I'm just like Julien. It's like, it doesn't count because it's still music, but I produce for other artists probably, not probably, more than I do for Nightlife, which is eventually going to be a scale that flips. But that keeps me fresh. It keeps me learning about stuff. Like, I hadn't touched a metalcore record in a while, for example, and right now I'm mixing like a deathcore new metal kind of project.
Is that the one that you sent me?
I probably did, honestly.
When Redacted came back with their new song, and I was tweeting about how I will not cover
when Redacted came
on
through.
the channel.
When Robot Lady Voice Redacted. God, the first time, you remember where you were when you heard that the first time. Anyway, yes, that is that album. That band.
How exciting. And that kind of segues into another question that I have. How many bands do you work, or are you working with right now outside of Nightlife?
Right now it's 8 artists. And it varies. Usually it's somewhere between 3 and 6. I'm a little overwhelmed right now.
Man.
But I like making music. I don't know. It's like when I am too... This is how my self-hating would put it, but regardless. When I'm too lazy to work on Nightlife stuff and bash my head against the wall and grow and improve and put in the work, I have somebody else's music to still make music with and practice my skills with and my creativity and everything, but it doesn't have to be so heavy on the pressure, so heavy on the, well, is this the right idea? Is this going to be as innovative as it needs to be? Blah, blah, blah. I can just mix a deathcore record and make it knuckle dragging balls ass heavy and have that be the only thing I care about, you know? Which is very refreshing. And it just helps me learn more about what's happening in music and what, like I did an indie folk album last year too. That was really cool because then because of that, I'm now listening to like Muna, whatever. Muna, like more Phoebe Bridgers, like stuff like Snail Mail, things in that kind of lane that I just somehow got past or just didn't get to me until now.
Ooh, have you heard of Boygenius?
Yeah, and I hadn't listened to them until before I was doing that record. I caught up on Julien Baker because that was the one that I knew. I knew her. And I'd listened to Lucy Dacus before because one of my friends went on tour with them. Bartiz Strange, very great artist. But not enough Phoebe and never together. And so all of that is incredible music, incredible context toward just what is music world, which I'm not a part of early. I very no, it did the thing.
You're back.
That's incredible. I hope it doesn't make like an awful sound or whatever.
It kind of sounds like you're on a speaker for like, it was probably like 1 second and then it like comes back to normal. So it's not so bad. It is. It's really fast that it happens.
Yeah. So
I'm
I don't
really
remember the
glad
question.
you brought that up. It was so we were talking about like who you're producing for, and then kind of got into Phoebe Bridgers, and Julien Baker is one of my all-time favorite artists. Like I have I Rejoice right here and Complain on the other arm, which is from her first record. I got to see her twice before she like really blew up, and so I like got to be like right there, and it was super cool. And then I saw her play a sold out show at the Wiltern in LA with Phoebe Bridgers and Lucy Dacus, and Boygenius perform their first like their only EP at this point. They have the record coming out on March 31st, which I cannot wait for. But
see, I'm so glad that we brought it up. I wouldn't have pinned you to be a fan of that kind of music, so that's really cool.
Yeah, Julien Baker. I suppose that's sort of like what we were when you asked me before about like what I look for with the anime and currents and stuff. It could be an artist in a totally different realm, but if it hits for me, Julien Baker, it was really her vulnerability and her lyrics. There's just so much to talk about.
It's different when you actually link up with somebody who's a friend who is a part of what you're doing. It's
neat. It's very neat. To circle back to what we were talking about before it cut us off. With Julien Baker, I really connected to her vulnerability. Her first record, I found her music through a Tiny Desk concert on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I was watching it, and it was like I think 2016 or 2015 when I found her, and I was just listening to her lyrics, listening to how she talked and like how she spoke and answered the questions. And she's like a person who she's just so intelligent and empathetic, and she pauses before she speaks and like thinks truly about what she's going to say, and I cannot relate to that at all. I don't but I
give yourself more credit, but I hear you.
I aspire to. My brain is like that. Go, 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 like fire, 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 do this now, bam, 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 like what else? And like jumps. It's like basically having like 15 tabs open on your computer and clicking through them and stuff. Like my CPU is probably busted, like
damn, not the brain CPU.
Brain CPU busted. And Julien Baker just carries herself in a way that I really admired. And then on top of that, I just really liked her voice. And now her most recent record, having the full band and stuff, she's just really like evolved as an artist. And listening through her first record, you can hear what she's overcome to get to where she is now. And she talks a little bit about on her newest record about kind of slipping back a little, but she still is doing what she does and is able to kind of get past some of like where she was when she started writing her music as such a young person as well. So it was like a mixture of things that really drew me towards her. But she's for sure in my all-time favorite artists. And
well, that's really cool to know. And I just like creating profiles of people and such, just understanding who's here right now, and it's really cool to know that somebody that likes what you do also is probably still into Julien Baker and did get into them at the time like I thought they would have and all that stuff.
It is neat, and I've it's been cool because before I kind of felt like I'm not sure if people in my Discord server and stuff will really like receive this in a certain type of way, but they did, like, they at least gave it a shot. And for some people it's not going to be for them, and that's understandable and expected, but like to have some people be like, oh, I also really like connect with this and stuff, it's just cool to see how that goes, I guess, and like how you can connect on, even though like the way that you connected with each other is something so vastly different, you can still find these like outside connections and stuff that will click with other people. I guess like it's the same thing that we were talking about before, like a lot of us are people who for a long time felt misunderstood or different in some type of way that's not good and stuff, so to just kind of like find these similarities with people, it's very neat.
Yeah, the more people you find like you, the more you feel like there is no right or wrong, just you.
Yeah, and it's very neat, especially because you'll see different parts of yourself in other people. So many other people who have all these different parts of yourself that maybe, or themselves that maybe you can relate to, maybe you can't. But that's what makes like people very cool. Like everyone is so different and stuff, and everything. I do think like every little experience like makes people who they are and stuff. So I think it makes sense that everything is not for everybody, but to still come back to those points where it's like, oh wow, like you like this too, I love this, like
we're
I'm
just
so
people.
Yeah,
this human experience thing, sometimes we share it. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy because it can feel so. I think it's another thing is like being involved in community and stuff like that. It kind of takes you out of yourself more, like less
God,
of that less of that like first person stuff, and more like think a little bit outside of yourself and how this may be received by someone else who isn't you, and stuff like that. It's just very neat and different.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, kind of tying back to what we were in a way to Nightlife, is like sometimes I get bogged down by the pressure of what I feel like we should do to serve people. And to make no mistake, like as much as I want the project to be for me, I do want it to be for the community as well. That's like a huge reason I started it. So one thing I'm hearing as a feedback from a lot of people is that we do need more fun, and that we do need more reasons to dance, or more reason, like us alternative metal people need more reasons to like.
Did they not listen?
I mean, in the general world too. I mean, hold on, very quick tangent. Beyonce, Drake, done. Pink Panthers, done. We're in dance mode now. But anyway, no, I'm hearing a lot of people be like, this is kind of what I've been missing, a reason to shake my ass, basically.
Yeah.
And that is cool, knowing that we can supply something that people want, that people actually think that they need, that they haven't seen a lot of. That's really cool. Part of it will always be serving that. And yeah, you're right. It's just about learning that community means that there are certain things that can connect us and, I don't know, make us feel like we're more, I was going to say connected again, but yeah, make us feel like we're more of a community. Yeah. After all.
I love that too, because I do think it's important, because like we were talking about, like it can get so like when you're listening to nothing, especially as I think like a content creator, a lot of what we cover, it could be so heavy emotionally, not just like heavy, like wow, that breakdown was thick and stuff like that, but the topics and stuff. So it's really nice to get the more danceable stuff. Like I felt the same when Northlane started putting out their newer stuff, and like I was like, is that like an ass-shaking breakdown, or is that just me? And then seeing other people say it too, and then you get, we got Nightlife, and one of my friends described it as like an EP to shake your ass to, and I was like, that is accurate. That is so accurate.
You know what I'm saying? That's awesome.
And it's part of what I love about it too, because it can, having something different on the rotation is really refreshing. I think something different that you enjoy. Obviously, I could put something different on that I don't like, and then I'm just gonna skip it. Like,
right.
But I think Nightlife brought that into what especially last year with my list and stuff. It was like, this is something special. Like this is something, like listening through my list in a playlist. When you get to Nightlife, it's something that's like, who's that? What is that? And yeah, it's just very cool. So I know we've been on for quite a minute, but
You're good.
Yeah,
we're jumping around.
Yeah, what does the future look like for Nightlife?
Ooh, okay. Without cursing anything or going into too much, or being that vague, haha, big things coming soon person. It's so hard to strike a balance. there's some really neat things happening. There's this one song of ours that is already out now that we gotten redone, basically, by a mixing engineer that you all very much know. And if you don't know them by name, you know their work because it's been... Yeah, okay. Don't want to curse it.
Yeah.
And that is kind of related to a potential label situation, which is also really exciting. But none of it is in stone yet, per se, besides having that mix in hand, which is super fucking cool. I shat myself when I heard it the first time. I'm like, yeah, because I've wanted to work with him for years, and he's relevant now. Anyway, I keep on worrying that I'm not going to get to work with all the producers I love now while it's actually their heyday or whatever. But anyway, that's exciting. You can expect more ass beaters, because every time we kind of get a little bit away from the center, just like we're in the weeds about working on something, we come back and we're like, okay, what are we good at? Okay, let's make a banger. Let's just do that. Because I'll be over here and like, there's this one song I'm stoked on that will come out this year that is like, starts out as like just a normal kind of post-hardcore with synths and like a very upbeat punk vibe thing, and then it ends as like a complete dissolution toward hyperpop. And I really like, I find myself fucking around with a lot of stuff like that, and then I'll get in the weeds and I'll be like, this isn't doing enough, this isn't good, this is blah, and Julien would be like, stop, let's write a song, let's make a banger, let's focus on a single. I'm like, you're right, we'll do that. So that is all to say,
Sounds
if
like
any
a
of
good
these
mix. You know,
right,
someone to bring you back down from that.
it's a running joke that Julien is the ground and I'm just fucking like in the clouds somewhere all the time. I am the world's like, what do you call that? Not the daydreamer or whatever. There's an Susie Sally something or other, but it's having to do with daydreaming. Anyway, whatever. I'm in space, he grounds us. It's great. But if any of these 15 songs happen, it's going to be a mix of bangers. It's going to be, there's a couple more times we're going to try the whole R&B radio rock thing. Hence that redone song. Wink, wink, nudge. And no, you're good.
I'm like thinking of who it could be. But for Nightlife, so you've got music coming, hopefully some shows and stuff like that in the works.
Oh yeah, shows are happening. There have been tour offers. We've only turned them down because we want to be sure that we can do it the way that we want to, which is a fully rehearsed set that, you know, there's a lot of backing tracks involved. There's a lot of stuff that, frankly, despite all of our live show experience, we've never done before. So there's a few things we have to learn as well. But I would say first show before the summer, and then probably a tour over the summer, if not in the fall. There's a few things that are being talked about, but it's all up to who asks us what. And, you know, once we're able to, yeah, it's just who asks.
Very
basically.
cool. I'll be interested to see what type of lineup it is, and of course, if y'all come anywhere near here, I will be. You're certainly a band that I'm very
guest list for life, bro.
Oh, thank you. I'll be
Easy,
there, buy some
peasy.
merch, do all that. It's been one of those because there aren't too many bands where I hear them and I'm like, I couldn't imagine what this would be like in a live setting. But Nightlife is definitely, because of like the shows I mainly go to and how those are, I'm like, I'm super interested. It was how I felt about Northlane's newer stuff too, and I just saw them 2 nights ago.
How did they do live?
Oh my god. Oh my god. They were incredible. Incredible.
Sick.
It was like, and Marcus really puts his own flavor into, they played Quantum Flux.
I saw your tweet. I was like, huh, I'd be into that.
The way that he sings, like the first verse, really all of the clean parts of it, it's just so different and it's his own thing. And then you have songs like, for me, Clockwork was like my least favorite off of Obsidian. Like I liked the song, but it didn't really click for me as much as everything else on there was like a no skip. I really want to hear, is this a test live? Because it gives me that same, I think, curiosity that I get with like wanting to hear you all live, because it's like a dance song, you know what I mean? Like, but I saw that kind of translate at this show. It was like in some of the Obsidian songs, it just like those electronic parts. It's same thing I think about Void of Vision. They'd be a really cool band to see live because they're adding all this stuff that's a little bit different from what I'm normally listening to, especially in a live setting. So it's definitely in that same line. I'm like, one of those bands I'm very curious to hear live.
I'm a see I'm gonna check to see if that Northlane bill is coming through still, or if I missed it already, because I need to check out what these. The thing that I'm getting toward is that like our live backtracks are going to be a part of the band, much like I'm sure these shows were.
Oh yeah.
So making that happen and making that a thing creatively and fluidly is going to be very much my challenge. So I'm very curious, and I'm glad to hear that it's done well right now. That's really exciting. But man, like, I don't think it'll happen on a U.S. tour basis ever. Here's hoping we get that kind of money and clout. But like, I want to at least headline here as like an 11-person band, and have like 3-piece horn section, 2 backing singers, 2 guitarists, like all that stuff. I'll be playing piano a little bit and all that. Like, really going out with the whole full band thing, because I don't know. There's a few.
11. Damn.
How do I put this? No, yeah, because there's a bunch of bands. Here, a bunch of R&B and hip hop artists that I really like. That their live set is fueled that way. Doja Cat as one example as well. Like, she has like a 9 or 10-person band with her when she goes. Denzel Curry has like a 8 or 9-person band with him. Because it's not super difficult to see how horn arrangements or how backing vocal arrangements could come out of what they make. Same thing with us. There are already horn parts built in some of them. The vibe is there. I would always prefer actual vocalists besides my own voice in the backing track or whatever, but because there are a bunch of backing vocals. So yeah, one day the dream is more nerdy than that. It involves closing with a transition from New Low into this classic Stevie Wonder song, but I'll spare you the details.
Ooh.
Point is, there's a dream, and maybe it'll happen, but for now, just expect like a bunch of backtracks and maybe a 4-piece band.
Oh yeah, and I've seen some discourse about like people being like, this band uses backing tracks and stuff, but it's like, have you? I think that it's again like that thing about like people being the loudest, that it's stuff like that, because I think most people know like a lot of what I like a lot is like when I listen to something and I can hear all those layers and stuff like that. I love that, and I obviously, what is the vocalist gonna do? What are they meant to do? Like, you know, if it's layered on the track and stuff, would you rather just not have those vocals or have it?
Nah,
I guess
I'm gonna
like
have my harmonies in there.
It's
Sorry,
a lack
y'all.
of understanding, I think, what goes into the actual music. I don't know that it's necessarily people actually having like I don't want to sound like I guess like just not understanding what goes into something like that, like what a track sounds like without the layers and stuff like that. Like, it just adds to what you're hearing, and sometimes it's like what atmosphere and stuff like that. Like, sometimes something might sound more atmospheric with it, or have you never heard a song where the same vocalist is screaming but then they're like either talking or singing layered? Like, how do you think that was gonna happen? Did you think that they had 2 mouths and just like yeah.
I don't know. There's a whole. I like for some reason missed that whole argument on Twitter. Like, I saw that it was happening, and then I just like it. I was on it a day later, and it was over.
It's probably better that way.
Probably, right? I don't know. Everything like that always just kind of screams like, we don't want to be like pop artists, and I'm like, okay. Why the audience is saying like, we don't want it to be like a pop show, we want it to be like a rock show, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean to you, and why is that the case? Because pop and hip hop artists, their performances are 2 backtracks. Sometimes they have a live band, but for the most part it's just them speaking over a live track that maybe they have a DJ playing for them, usually not. So it always goes down to that to me. It's like, what is it about the practice itself and how it's already being done? Because you either don't know it's being done, or there's something about the practice of it that you don't like. So, I don't know. Again, maybe because of all that, it's better that I didn't see the discourse.
I think so, yeah.
I don't care. I'm going to use so many tracks.
Oh, yeah, and it was written off by, like, a ton of artists. Like, I don't want to say a ton, but I saw a few people being like, hey, just so you know, like, we use backing tracks. I don't know if y'all didn't know this, but like, and we will continue to do so and stuff. And it's like,
plug your ears once. You'll hear them.
I want the artists to do whatever they feel is going to make the performance the best. Like, you know, obviously, like, you wouldn't want somebody like lip syncing or something over it, but like a backing track is something I think adds to the experience for some bands. So like, go ahead and add that backing track in there, you know.
That's reassuring. Cool.
Anyway, So yeah, is there? So I suppose we'll get to wrapping this up. Going on quite a bit, but it's been wonderful to talk to you. I wanted to know, is there anything? What can people do to best support Nightlife? Like, what are the best means of getting behind the band? What means the most to y'all? And then, is there anything that you want to like shout out, promote, or anything like that before we wrap up?
Damn. I got like a two-parter to that first one. So, real talk for a second, unfortunately. Yeah, the three of us are black people in a band in the alternative scene. The point I'm getting at is word of mouth goes super far. If you want to support us, actually, all of the talk that goes on Twitter, etc., whatever, about us is so helpful, because there is something about, for as much as we are just doing our thing and we're just trying to break through in our way or whatever, there is a lot to be said about a community support. And when it's something like that, where we're coming from a place of just less of an advantage, I won't say disadvantage, whatever it is, it helps to have the community support in that way. So, number one, I'll always say, if you like us, say something. That's super cool and it helps a lot. But starting this weekend, we'll also have some merch available, at least all the time. Some things will be perpetual, I think. So, buy some merch. I will probably be handling that myself. We have these very cool, cute bags that we're putting things in.
Aww.
Buy merch. I'm putting in little... My partner yesterday was like, "Oh my God, you're in your craft mom era." I'm like, "Yes, okay, I'm in my craft mom era." Behold, my pastel packing paper. So, buy merch. Talk about us online if you care, because that's really sweet, and also it makes us feel good inside and in our hearts, of course. So yeah, do those things to support us if you can, and listen to the music. Yeah. What do they have to look forward to? Hopefully we'll see you on the road soon. If I have anything to say with it, we're getting there. It just, everything takes so long. Expect more music. Expect a mixtape this year. There's some things I'm willing to manifest and say out loud, so expect a mixtape. That'll be cool. Support artists like, now I'm just gonna shout out friends. Fucking support Indighost. Support Scott2 Network. Support... Indighost is great, for the record, if you haven't heard them.
So good. Sorry, continue.
Excellent. No, you're good. Support them. Support Scott2 Network. Support Pink Shift. They're a great band. From Baltimore, or from around here, support Dosser. I'm just naming people now.
Pink Shift, you produced the first EP,
The first EP only, okay. Yeah, no. They did an album after that with Will Yip, which is another dream come true, to have a band that I work with go to a producer that I look up to a lot. That's just like, okay, cool. Put that one away. But they're an awesome band. Trying to think more relevant, more on the scene. Oh no, Scene Queen's great. Support her. Loveless, support him. And them. I'm done. That's how you support us. Support our friends. And talk about us. And buy merch.
Love that. Support all those people. Link for the merch will be in the description, as well as Nightlife, their promotional links, their social media, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff will be in the description of this video. If you haven't ran the EP, the first one with the 3 songs and the cover, obviously, that we had been talking about earlier in this, Fallback has, I think, 5 tracks on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 5-track EP, and it's phenomenal. It's an ass shaker. Be sure to check it out. It inspired me to, come back to these interviews, picking this to be the first one, because I truly think that they deserve more recognition. Regardless, I love seeing all the comments I've gotten over time, even as time goes on, more and more on the Nightlife video. But I just wanted to give a little bit more of a highlight on the channel to this band, to what they're doing, to what you're doing specifically, because you're wonderful at it. From a production standpoint and stuff, it's one of those things that made me, immediately before I got all the way through the EP, check the credits and see, what was the story with that. So from my point of view, very much worth your time to look into that. Look into the bands that Hansel has worked with. I stuttered it again, because
you killed it.
Just impressive.
Man, that's so cool. Thank you for having us. Thank you for caring. I know that, again, real talk, I know that it's not easy to talk about newer bands on a YouTube channel. I know how hard it is to balance that kind of idea of getting people supporting the algorithm while also supporting the people that you want to support. So it means a lot that you'll put yourself out there for a band like us, and that's really, really cool.
Oh yeah, one of those things I'll always put over the other to me, because it's just been an infinite form of support in my life, is like the bands that mean more to me. So I'm always willing to, and I think that y'all will get there too. I think that it will be a career that's like on a very upward trajectory for you all, as you're making stuff that's very cool, very I think hits for a lot of different people. It goes into a few different realms, I'll say, like what we were talking about with people in this scene. It's nothing that's like not accessible for people like that, but it also kind of expands. People might look at the guitar and go, what other kind of music is made with it? Yeah, like
Maroon 5, for the record.
Not a band I've listened to a ton of, like, in terms of the size of their discography, I think. So more.
I will give you one song. Take the 2 recommendations, which is the Lonely No More China Cymbal Breakdown, the chorus of track 3 on their first album. I think the song is called Shiver. The chorus has metal chugs in it. Don't know why. They're in there for a very quick second. They were a punk band for a second. It's really cool.
Huh.
It turns out somebody did this before, and it was Maroon 5.
Wow.
Oops.
I never would have ever guessed that.
We all learn. Anyway, not to keep going on tangent after tangent. Thank you so much for your time, Rachel. This is super cool. And I'm pronouncing that right too, right, Rachel?
Yes, you are.
Thank God.
I know it's spelled badly.
You don't have to talk to me about names and spelling and weird. I get it.
And thank you to everyone who has watched as well. Appreciate y'all very much, keeping us doing what we are doing. And thank you again for your time and all of this. And I very much appreciate it. And hopefully maybe next year or something after the next release.
You're coming on the Twitch.
Oh,
don't worry.
Would love to.
At the very least.
Would love to. All right.
Now we'll talk about it separately, but yeah. Okay.